Hey, how's it going? I'm Dan Freidenberg, and this is a Real Estate is a Scam update. Is real estate a scam? Well, that's kind of up to your perspective and how many pieces of the puzzle you got put together. There are definitely ways to make it work, and there are also definitely ways where smart, attentive people will walk into a situation and make no obvious mistakes and still lose their shirt. So you could reasonably walk away and feel that real estate is a scam, but I think that there's a little bit more nuance to it. So that's why I say realestateisascam.com is for people who read the fine print. And today, I'm joined today with Will Taylor. How are you doing today, Will?
Doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. And do you prefer Will? I know that your LinkedIn says William.
Will's great. Yeah.
Will's great. Okay, great. And so then, before we start talking about the real crux that we're getting into about the national realtor associations and those sorts of things, do you want to say a thing or two about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm in real estate. So I mainly focus on development. So I mainly take pieces of ground and raw land and then get the entitlements done. And then we either develop it ourselves or a lot of times we will sell it to the buyer if it ends up being that works best for us to have an earlier exit strategy. So that's my main component. And then on the side, I help people buy and sell real estate. And I mainly do that because I feel as though people need someone who's been there and done that. And if you name something in real estate, I've done it
Mhm.
for the most part, hands-on myself. So that's why I enjoy doing the transactional side of real estate because I enjoy helping people have someone who knows what they're doing be there for them.
I love it. I love it. Definitely a kindred spirit then. So let's get some framing in of what we're going to talk about today. Me personally, not that it's important, I have a driver's license, and that's the only kind of license that I have. I tell people that I'm from the internet because I am from the internet. I also live in Ottawa, Canada, which is the wrong answer for pretty much any question that you're going to have. And so that's why I like to do this a little bit tongue in cheek. But one thing I've noticed, and this is getting a little bit meta for a second, so I apologize.
Yeah.
One thing I notice about getting your diplomas, getting your degrees, getting your certifications, and all that kind of stuff, that's it feels like that's the license to print money. But then you find out once you're a little bit further in that there's usually some sort of regulating body. They're probably not really democratically elected. They're just like running whatever they are. Who knows? You know, the different organizations are different. But the most important thing I find is that when you actually get involved in some sort of industry, then you sort of have to get your hands dirty first. I think that's part of the reason why in medicine you've got medical interns like soon to be doctors dying of exhaustion in the ER, which is unacceptable given the importance of doctors. And I've been suspicious that that's what they're up to, is they're just trying to make it so that everybody has their hands dirty and you can't say, hey, that guy did those bad things. But when we're talking about like a few other licenses, the main thing is that I notice it basically forces you to sign some sort of document that says it's okay to sue you. Whereas when you don't have a license, it's, you know, you can sue somebody for negligence, but the fact is, since you're not a licensed professional, it's kind of like, well, you shouldn't have been going to that person then. So I think that frames in what people's exposure would be before they run into this situation. But Will, just fill in your experience or whatever you're comfortable saying. Where are we going with this in your experience?
Well, with my experience, like this actually comes to light a lot recently, especially with the new National Association of Realtors settlement. But a lot of people are saying, well, you wouldn't ask a doctor to do it for cheaper. And it's like, well, just like what you were talking about, Dan, the exact thing, doctors have to prove themselves. And realtors don't have to prove themselves before they get a license. In some states, it's as little as 40 hours to get licensed as a real estate agent. And then you take a test, which it's a super easy test. And then like in Utah, it's 120 hours. And in some states, I think it's as much as 200 hours. But at that point, you don't have to prove yourself. You are, at least in Utah, you're under a broker, and that broker they have experience, but you're not necessarily having to completely prove yourself in order to take on work. And so in real estate, you have the National Association of Realtors, which most realtors are basically forced to be a part of, gets money, and they're just a big lobbying group is what they are. And they lobby to make it as easy as possible for realtors to be realtors and do what they do, because if they do that, then the National Association of Realtors makes more money, and so do all the local associations. And so that's kind of the scam, one of
Hmm.
the many scams of real estate. And then also you talk about governing bodies, and the governing body, yeah, like in states, there is a state level body that's like actually run by the state for licensing issues. But for ethical issues, that all goes through the National Association of Realtors. And you can run into issues with that, with something as dumb as calling out another agent on their BS. Like I have straight up emailed an agent because they completely scammed someone out of $150,000. And I was like, of course I had some colorful wording for that person because it was absolutely ridiculous what they did. And of course they went to my broker being like, "Oh, can you believe what he said?" And my broker was like, "So what happened?" And I told him, he's like, "Yeah, maybe it'd be best not to be so colorful next time." And I was like, "Okay." But he lodged a complaint still on the ethical side of things. And luckily nothing came of that because, in my opinion, I did absolutely nothing wrong. But sometimes they will see that as something wrong. But then with the self-governing, and something that's really ridiculous in real estate is that, and these people still have licenses. This same guy that I just talked about, he got fined $15,000 for forging someone's signature in order to go to the city and say, "Look, I have an easement, so now you can approve my development." Completely forged his signature, but the guy still has a real estate license. Like, it's like, are you serious? That's like a doctor purposely writing bad prescriptions for someone for like a narcotic level drug.
Hmm.
And it's like that should be an automatic, you are no longer practicing real estate. But he's still allowed to practice real estate and say, "Oh, I'm a realtor, I follow these ethics," even though he doesn't.
Hmm.
And it's just someone else in that kind of in that same transaction, because there was a whole bunch of land we were working on. Him and his partners, who they were trying to make it so we couldn't develop the land because they lived near it. But him and his partners scammed people out of 20 to 30 million dollars. And the SEC said you can no longer practice in securities or wherever it was with the SEC.
Hmm.
And if the SEC doesn't want them to do business, why would the state of Utah want them to still do business in real estate? And they are still, one of them's a mortgage broker and another is a real estate agent, and they still have their licenses for it. And it's like, why are we allowing these people who are helping people make the biggest decision, financial decision of their lives? They scammed people and now they still have their licensing, even though, yeah, they weren't criminally charged. I don't know how it works with the SEC, but I know that it's like they weren't really criminally charged, but they were fined and reprimanded for it. And it was like, why is the National Association of Real Estate and the state licensing committees allowing these people to still practice real estate?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm really glad that you brought up syndication because I'm just sitting here jotting down notes as we do it. One of the weird quirks that I like to do, I'm really bad at pretending, or at least I just don't enjoy pretending that I haven't heard information before if I actually already have. And
Yeah.
so it's a little bit of a quandary I ran into with these interviews. But there are a couple of points that I jotted down. One of them is, since you mentioned syndication, I think that's a prime example.
Yeah.
One of the things with syndication is you're selling passive interest in real estate, which means that somebody, it might be you, is contributing capital but no effort. And in return for that capital, you're getting some sort of passive. You're entitled to some passive income as a result of that contribution, whereas the GPs actually have to have some sort of duty that's real. Now, when it comes to selling a security, It's really tough when you're talking to securities attorneys, when you're learning how to buy apartment complexes, commercial properties, how to raise capital and all that kind of stuff. You hear that the SEC is in charge, and you hear that you're not allowed to do it. It's illegal, or if you do it wrong, you're going to wind up in an orange jumpsuit. Now, of course, the issue is that everybody's got to make a buck, including the securities attorney. They've went to school. They did their undergrad and then their law school, and then they probably had to do an extra specialization on syndications. But when you really get them down to the point, and if you check out 506B.me, which is 506b.me, you can see the FAQs page on there that covers this in great detail. But it seems that the thing that's actually illegal is selling that passive interest to an investor and not having a license or an exemption. So we'll talk about the exemptions real fast, and you can get more details on 506B.me, but there are a few different exemptions out there. The most common one is 506B. It's something to the tunes of about 85% of the
Yeah.
raises. And the beautiful thing about a 506B is that you can take somebody's word for it on their accredited status. You don't have to go into great detail like getting a CPA to audit everything that you have just to prove that you're accredited. But you can also include non-accredited investors because it's supposed to be a non-public, it's supposed to be an off-market deal, a private deal that you're not supposed to publicly discuss. And so as a result, you're not allowed to advertise for this reason in a 506B. There are others where you can advertise as a 506C, but the main thing is it doesn't become orange jumpsuit territory unless your exemption gets yanked. If you take on non-accredited investors on a 506B, you have to be able to prove, and in other words, you need documentation showing that you had a prior substantive relationship, as they say. That really was the reason for the 506B.me platform, is to make sure that that's in place and try to remove plausible deniability as much as human possible. Now, I need to say one more time, the only license I have is a driver's license. And so as a result, if I sell a security to somebody, I have to have an exemption. And if that exemption is yanked, then you have to pay back all of your investors plus interest. And of course, the reason why you raised capital from them in the first place is because you don't have the money to pay them back plus interest. And so that means you are prone to going bankrupt and then fielding criminal allegations of fraud. So when it comes to securities and syndications, that is more or less how it works. But one thing I ran into is that, well, what is the clear path to licensing? So like that could all seem moot and just be like, oh, well, Dan, of course you're going to, have these issues with licenses because you don't have any. If you had them, you'd be a lot happier about them. It's an argument that sounds like it holds water. But what I understand about the licenses where you are allowed to sell a security without an exemption, you need to be a broker dealer, which means that like FINRA Series 7 is the one that I've heard, and then Series 65 is also good for bonus points. But the thing is, when I hear people getting those licenses, passing those tests, just like a real estate agent, you have to hang your shingle under somebody else, which means that you're not only giving them a piece of your business, even if they're only involved in title, like as in name alone, but also they're going to really be your boss in the sense of saying, like, we don't want you selling your $2 to $5 million apartment complex syndication. We want you selling these stocks from Wall Street that we're getting massive kickbacks for the volume we end up raising from that. So that is my understanding of the licensing issue as it relates to syndications and selling securities. And like really, it seems like there is no clear way to sell these securities without an exemption. There is no way to just get your license and I want to say not be lazy, but how does that compare to your experience in being a realtor? What kind of thoughts did that bring up?
I mean, it's very similar to being a realtor, other than the broker doesn't really, uh, I mean, a broker could say that they don't want you to sell something or advise you on it, but kind of in the end, you kind of have your own discretion to, I guess you could say, like take on a listing or a buyer client, even against your broker's advice.
Mhm.
Uh, but so it's not as that's kind of the issue. It's not as regulated as like what you just kind of had, where the person under financial who's in charge of them can kind of dictate, hey, like, don't want you doing this, want you to be doing this. So there's not as much care taken because there are so many people who are real estate agents these days who are just part-time.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, but I mean, if I had a doctor who was, I don't know, let's say he worked in an office somewhere at a tech firm, and then on weekends he was a doctor. Like, I don't know if I would really like want him to be my doctor, because I'd be like, why are you just a part-time doctor? Like,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so since it is so easy, there are so many people who are just part-time, like financial advisor. Like, I wouldn't want a financial advisor who just does it on the side. They're like, oh, hey, like I help people get money, like make money on the side. I help them invest on the side. Like, that's not something I would want. I
Mhm.
wouldn't trust someone with money either. And with the exemptions as well, like those people that I talked about earlier, like they weren't licensed or accredited. No, like they weren't licensed, and so that's also a big deal with the SEC. They got mad at them for that. But
Mhm.
someone once told me, who he's raised a lot of money. He once told me, he said the SEC doesn't care till someone loses money.
Right. Right. Right.
Doesn't mean you should run a business like that, but it
Yeah.
does seem there are a lot of people out there who aren't doing things as legitimate as they should, who are making money, but it's not a risk I would want to take, that because you could always lose money any moment and it's out of your control.
Hmm. 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 Right. And honestly, when we go back to the main subject of this episode, it's taking a real close look at, does it make sense to have these associations? What benefit do they give the people who are members? What benefit does it give to people who hire or make use of a broker that is included from this, with this program, with this organization? And it sounds a little bit like what I understand about the Bar Association for attorneys as well, which is that they take a fee, and the main thing is that you're not allowed to say bad things about them or other attorneys. But there's clearly a need for this. Like when I first opened realestateisascam.com, the one suggestion I heard more often than anything else is like, well, there really needs to be some sort of database of sponsors, deal sponsors, because like as you said, like you're not going to go to a part-time doctor, or at least one who is just part-time qualified, I suppose. And so you really have to say, well, why would you go to these other types of people? And I think that that's a real important issue to get ironed out. Is like there needs to be some sort of proof that people know what they're talking about.
Just to sum up, I mean, when it comes to people choosing to do business with people in real estate, whether that's as a realtor or a syndication, et cetera, like you really got to look at their qualifications and what they've done. And especially these days, it's so easy to have an online presence that shows your knowledge, like, which one of the main reasons why it was a couple years ago I started posting on LinkedIn every day, and I did it so that I have something I can show people, like, yeah, if you want to see all my knowledge, like I can spew it out to you, or you can just scroll through the 500 plus posts I have of all my knowledge, because that just shows more of a qualification than just being like, yeah, I sold 100 million in real estate last year. I didn't actually do that last year. I'm just throwing a number out.
Right, right, right.
But anyone can just say that. But you got to show what you're doing these days, and it's easy to do that with social media.
Absolutely. And the tricks that I see people doing that are just straight out dishonest is they'll take credit for what the entire team did, and then they'll just be a little bit loose with their pronouns. And what I mean
Yeah,
by that is like, we raised $5 million turns into I helped raise $5 million, which
yeah,
it seems to imply some very different things. And that's definitely one of the issues, and it's why we focus on vetting those sponsors and finding out who is the person who's actually signing the check. Because if they're going to be putting on this social media presence, then that's really the long and short of how they're going to be getting a lot of people who are just the PR, the marketing, something like that. So I absolutely love that we've been able to hit those different features. I do think that complaint-based issues are the biggest problems in different bureaucracies and things like that. And it's kind of scary just because there is a demand for transparency and knowing these different things. And as you mentioned on social media, since you also post every single day, you can confess about how plagiarism is rampant in this industry. Everybody is ripping off everybody, like the Wall Street Journal articles, just like different, oh, well, this is what's going to happen in the economy. And it's not from data that they scoured through themselves. It's they just found really intelligent sounding pundits and are just propagating that. So that's really great. Now, you might be wondering, how do I reach out? How do I get to know some people who actually are giving out this great knowledge for free and possibly getting you on your feet as far as your real estate career? I'll hijack the conversation, talk about myself first. Fortunately, LinkedIn is going to be the easiest way to reach me, and I'm lucky enough to have this very distinct last name, which makes it really easy to find. Other than that, you can also check out Amazon.com, also use my last name, and I have a few different books on different business skill building concepts and directions, so you can check those out. But William, right now, today, in the end of March 2024, your sub headline is the pro real estate guy, so that makes it easy to find. But is
yeah.
LinkedIn the best spot to catch you, or is there a website that's better? Phone, email? How should people reach out?
Yeah, LinkedIn's best. It has my phone number and email on there as well. So, but yeah, and if there's a lot of William Taylors out there, but if you just look up the pro real estate guy on LinkedIn, that's real easy to find me.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my public service announcement, which is not for you, Will. It's for you in the audience. If you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs and like migraine-like symptoms, I'm highly confident it's due to the downright hideous subscribe button that's just down there. And you can get rid of it for free. I'm personally motivated to tell lots of people to hit the subscribe button, because if enough people do, then YouTube will actually start to pay for these videos instead of me. And I think that would be amazing. The trade-off to you, just so we're clear, is that my videos may show up on your list of suggestions if you subscribe, but quite frankly, you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions, because I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Will, I appreciate you joining me. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you. I
Hey
appreciate it.
there. Are you
Awesome.
interested in
Thanks.
commercial real estate deals? Would you like to build your network of investors and deal sponsors? Well, the best thing I can do for you is have you appear on a chance encounter interview as featured on dandoesdeals.com. You may know me from 506B Me or as a top commercial real estate voice on LinkedIn. And if I had to think of the top factors in your success in commercial real estate, my top two would be your network and your ability to effectively explain how deals work with effective communication. The 15-minute chance encounter format, it checks both of those boxes, and they ensure that you can share your private deals with me without the SEC calling it a public solicitation. So hop onto LinkedIn. You can see my name is over here, Dan Friedenberg, and search for my name. And the best way to reach me and book that is to message me through LinkedIn. And don't worry, it doesn't matter if you decided to enter this space just last week or 2 weeks ago, or if it was decades ago. It'll be fun and easy to look good. We're just asking multiple choice questions based on your core competencies you look to contribute, your level of sophistication, and all that kind of stuff. So I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.